They often say that crying easily means you're fragile, that tears are a sign of weakness, that if emotions surface too quickly, it must mean you can't handle things the way others do. From early on, many people learn that composure is valued, that keeping it together is a form of strength, that emotions should be managed quietly, preferably out of sight. So when someone cries easily, it's often noticed, sometimes gently, sometimes with discomfort, sometimes with judgment that isn't spoken out loud. And over time, that attention can turn inward. Why does this happen to me? Why can't I stop it? Why do my emotions show up before I'm ready for them? For many people, crying easily isn't something they chose. It didn't start as a habit or a reaction they developed later in life. It's simply how their system responds. A voice softens unexpectedly, and their chest tightens. A moment of connection lands, and their eyes fill. A piece of music swells, and something opens before they can prepare for it. Often the tears arrive before the explanation, and that can be confusing, especially when the situation doesn't seem dramatic, when nothing bad is happening, when others around them appear calm, even unaffected. From the outside, it can look like an overreaction, but from the inside, it often feels like something has been touched. For many people who cry easily, emotions don't arrive one at a time. They arrive layered. Relief mixed with sadness, gratitude brushing against loss, connection stirring old memories. And when emotions overlap like that, the body responds before the mind organizes them. Tears are often that response, not as a decision, not as a loss of control, but as movement. For some, crying doesn't show up only in moments of pain. It appears in moments of beauty, in kindness that feels unexpected, in being understood without having to explain. These tears don't signal distress. They mark impact. They show up when something reaches a place inside that words don't quite reach. From the outside, this sensitivity can be misunderstood. People may assume the person is overwhelmed, that they're unstable, that they take things too personally. But internally, many people who cry easily are deeply responsive. They register tone. They notice pauses. They sense what's being felt beneath what's being said. They don't just hear words, they feel context. And when that information accumulates, the body finds a way to release it. For many, crying becomes the body's way of telling the truth before language arrives. This responsiveness often has a history. Some people grew up in environments where emotions were intense, unpredictable, or unspoken. They learned early to pay attention, to read the room, to sense shifts before they were acknowledged. Others grew up where emotions were present but not explored, where feelings were brushed past quickly, where there wasn't much space to linger with them. In both cases, emotions didn't disappear. They simply learned to move internally. Over time, the body became quick to respond, attuned, alert. Crying easily can grow out of that attentiveness, not because the person couldn't cope, but because they learned to process quietly, often alone. As life goes on, this can create a complicated relationship with tears. On one hand, crying can feel relieving. It loosens something. It allows movement where there was tension. On the other hand, it can feel inconvenient, especially in places where emotions are expected to stay contained. At work, in public conversations, in moments where strength is assumed to look a certain way. Many people who cry easily become skilled at minimizing themselves afterward. They apologize quickly. They reassure others. They explain that they're fine, even when nothing was actually wrong. Not because they believe tears are a problem, but because they've learned that tears make other people uncomfortable. So they manage the reaction that follows the reaction. And that effort can be exhausting. Over time, this pattern can turn inward. People begin to wonder if they're too sensitive, if they're exaggerating, if they should have learned by now how to keep things contained. They compare themselves to those who seem steady no matter what. People who can talk about difficult experiences without their voice changing. And they may feel behind, as if they missed some lesson about emotional control. But crying easily doesn't usually mean emotions are out of control. Often it means they're close to the surface. And being close to the surface doesn't make them weaker. It makes them accessible. Many people who cry easily are not overwhelmed by life. They're responsive to it. They're moved by sincerity, by vulnerability, by moments where something real breaks through routine. They don't experience emotions in isolation. They experience them relationally. What's happening around them matters. Sometimes, what others
Tears
feel
are simply the body acknowledging that connection. If you're new here, this channel explores psychology in a quieter way, focusing on the parts of human experience that are often misunderstood. It's also common for tears to appear in moments that seem small. A brief comment, a familiar song, a quiet scene in a movie they've seen before. And yet, in truly difficult situations, these same people may remain steady. They show up, they function, they handle responsibility. This contrast can confuse others. Why this, but not that? Why now, but not earlier? But emotional responses don't always follow logic. They follow safety. Often, tears appear when the body senses it doesn't need to stay braced, when vigilance softens, when holding together is no longer required. For many people, crying easily isn't about being unable to handle life. It's about being able to feel it. Still, there is often grief woven through this experience. Many people who cry easily wish they didn't, not because they dislike emotion, but because of how it's interpreted, the awkwardness, the attempts to stop it, the assumption that something must be wrong. Over time, this can teach someone to hold back parts of themselves, to quiet reactions that feel natural, to stay composed at the cost of honesty. And that can create distance from their own inner experience. There's also grief in being misunderstood, in having tears read as instability, or immaturity, or weakness, when in reality, they often reflect depth, attunement, a system that responds honestly to what it encounters. For many, the pain isn't in the crying itself. It's in having to justify it, to explain that they're okay, that nothing is wrong, that they don't need fixing, just space. Over time, some people begin to notice something shift internally, not because the tears stop, but because the relationship to them changes. They begin to see that tears often arrive at moments of truth, moments when something matters, moments when pretending would require more effort than honesty. They may begin to notice that their reactions aren't random. They follow meaning. They follow connection. And slowly, the shame around crying can soften. Not disappear, but loosen. Crying easily doesn't erase strength. It often exists alongside it. Many people who cry easily are resilient. They endure quietly. They reflect deeply. They carry life with care. Their tears don't prevent them from moving forward. They move with them. In the end, crying easily isn't a failure of control. It's a form of expression, a visible sign of an inner world that registers, responds, and releases. And for many people, recognizing this doesn't make them cry less. It simply makes the tears feel less like a flaw, not something to overcome, just something that has always been there. A response, a signal, a reminder that feeling deeply is not the same as falling apart. Sometimes, it's simply the body's way of telling the truth.
You're not alone in that experience. And if you feel comfortable, you're welcome to share what this brought up for you in the comments. Sometimes seeing our experiences reflected in others can make them feel a little less isolating.